Hello there, you're watching Talking Europe on France 24. I'm Catherine Nicholson. Now, big question of this week, is Europe about to plunge into a new migration crisis? That's a question many people are asking after Turkey declared that its border with the EU is open, even as the EU says that is not the case. Tens of thousands of people have attempted to cross the border between Turkey and its EU neighbours Greece and Bulgaria in recent days. Greece's government announced that it would be processing no more new asylum applications for 1 month. This all coincides with increased deadly violence in Syria, with as many as 4 million Syrians who fled war already sheltering in Turkey as part of a 2016 deal. Now, there are increased reports of violent pushbacks of migrants from the EU's frontiers, not just on the Turkish border, but also on the crossings between Croatia and Bosnia and Spanish enclaves in North Africa and Morocco. Now, we'll be discussing all of this with a panel of MEPs who all come from countries with external EU borders. I have with me Juan Fernando López Aguilar, Spanish MEP. Hello there. Former Spanish Justice Minister, in fact, and you're currently chair of the Civil Liberties Committee here at the Parliament.
That's correct. Thank you for having us.
Well, thanks for being with us. Now, next to you, Stelios Kouloglou, Greek MEP from the European United Left Group and the Syriza Party in Greece. Hello there.
Hello.
And across from you, across the table, we have Tomislav Sokol, Croatian MEP from the EPP, European People's Party, the biggest group here in the Parliament. And you're a member of the EU-Turkey Joint Parliamentary Committee.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, thanks, everybody. Let's start off with our viewers, taking a look at the latest events there after Turkey had declared its border open with the EU.
Desperately trying to cross the Aegean Sea, Turkey published this video, which it says shows Greek authorities shooting in the water next to a boat of migrants. Tensions have been rising at the Turkish border since President Erdogan announced that Turkey would no longer block migrants from heading into Europe. It accuses Greece of killing 2 migrants in the resulting skirmishes and seriously injuring a third. Accusations Athens says are false.
No shots have been fired by Greek border forces against any individuals attempting to enter Greece illegally. The contrary amounts to no more than gross and deliberate misinformation.
A local neo-Nazi group in Lesbos tried to block people from disembarking from this boat, yelling at them to go back and threatening journalists filming their actions.
Go now! Okay. Go!
This Afghan family made it into Greece only to turn back because they claim they were mistreated by Greek authorities. But their European dream is far from over.
The Greek soldiers took my money, my phone, hit me, my wife, all of us. I was forced to come here. I don't have that much money. I came here, but maybe we will still get to Greece.
This is the prize at the end of that dangerous race. A spot in one of Greece's overstretched migrant camps, where on Monday migrants protested at their treatment. Moira was built to house 3,000 people, but holds more than 19,000, even without the new arrivals.
There we go. So let's start, of course, with this very hot situation on the EU's border with Turkey. We had EU leaders Ursula von der Leyen, David Sassoli and Charles Michel visiting the land border on Tuesday. Now, Ursula von der Leyen, when she went there, she talked about the EU providing a shield. Is this the same as President Trump talking about having a wall?
That's deplorable language. And when you hold such a high position, you should care about language. But not only about language, it's also about content. This European Parliament has made it a million times. The situation is untenable. This is only adding an additional drop into this whole landscape, which is absolutely unbearable. It's Lesbos, it's Moria, it's a situation that is shocking all of Europe. It's asking for a European response, which is simply lacking. There's no political will to come up with a proper European response. But you know what? The European legislation, which is effective by now, provides and asks for such a response, but the governments reunited in the Council are simply in denial of European law. Suspending asylum is not a choice. That should be bound by law. It is actually a legal requirement. So the thing is that once again, we will have in the plenary in Strasbourg next week yet again another debate on the matter. And of course, we're trying to add some value.
Well, this concerns your country most directly, Stelios Kouloglou. Is Greece going against international law, as Mr. López Aguilar has put forward there?
Yes, concerning the asylum applications, yes. The government decided to postpone for 1 month to freeze actually for a month the applications, which is against the international law, of course.
So what should be happening?
The problem is that Greece cannot handle the problem alone. It needs a European solidarity. It needs the idea that we are a union, and every member of the union must take their own responsibilities. Not only in the question of the banks, when you're not complying with a certain decision, you are punished and threatened and facing.
Referring to the financial crisis.
Yes, I'm referring to the financial crisis, but also to questions concerning the values of the European Union. You know, you mentioned the trip of
von der Leyen,
yes, and the other.
Michel.
You know, there was an agreement between Turkey and the European Union 3 years ago. That agreement has been last week, 10 days ago, violated. You know, did you listen anybody of them to say that Turkey violated the agreement? No. They still consider that nothing is happening. I mean...
Tomislav Sokol, what do you make of Ursula von der Leyen saying that she expects EU to put up a shield around its borders, and what our other guests have said, they want to see more solidarity?
But one does not exclude the other. I mean, I think the primary principle is that we have to protect our external border. And of course, people who are trying to illegally cross the border do not have the right to asylum protection, which is often mentioned in these kinds of discussions.
Are we not protecting the external border because, as our guest is putting forward, that there is no system inside the EU once people are across that border? Where next?
I mean, if somebody is violating international law, like the Turkish president is doing, when you have this big influx of people on the border, so it's very hard to act in kind of typical ways which have been done before, because this is a new situation. This is a novel situation which hasn't existed before. But the fact is that the first principle is that we have to prevent illegal migration. We have to prevent illegal crossings. The same things that Croatia has been doing. And of course, I agree that Europe needs to have a more common policy. We have the problem of the common asylum system, but the first step should be that we have to protect our law, because in the end, illegal crossings of the borders outside of the official border crossings are illegal. So that's also the breach of both internal and international law. So I think that's the first principle. And then I agree that we need to have a more common European response, and that we have to act in solidarity not just with Greece but also with other countries which are in a similar situation like Croatia.
I would like to object a point. Managing the external borders of the European Union is not only managing external borders of an individual member states. So it takes Europe to handle that, and there's European law providing that. Even for those who enter illegally in the territory of the European Union, there is an asylum right, there is an asylum law. That is only the more so if you consider that 96% of people who enjoy asylum protection in the European Union have entered irregularly. You know why? Because they were not given any other chance than to make it irregularly. There are no legal pathways. That's one of the elements of the puzzle.
Well, should we be creating legal pathways?
Of course, there should be humanitarian corridors. There should be relocation programs. There should be effective resettlement programs. And there should be more humanitarian visas as well, as this European Parliament has asked for.
Let's ask our other guests if they support these ideas.
There should be penalties to the countries of the European Union.
Not solidary.
They are not abiding by the decisions.
The countries that aren't accepting to relocate, redistribute.
Yes, because those are
denial of solidarity.
Those are decisions taken 3 years ago, and nothing is happening. I mean, Hungary is not taking even one refugee.
Well, we've had Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Bulgaria, and Denmark.
But I think it's completely unacceptable that people, and we have a lot of people who are not coming from war-torn countries like Syria. There are people from Pakistan, Iraq, etc. We have also reports from the ground. There is a lot of people from there who are using the asylum system to get into the countries where life is better, where social assistance is better than in the countries that they came from. So I mean, the asylum system should not be used in this kind of way. So that's also something that needs to be mentioned.
You agree?
And the second,
you agree to take all the political refugees then?
I think that
you agree to take all the refugees coming from the war.
Please don't put the words in my mouth. So people who are entitled to international protection should use the official pathways that do exist, officially ask for asylum, be processed, etc. But they don't want to be processed in Greece. They don't want to be processed in Croatia, many of them. They just want to go to Germany, Austria, etc. So that's one of the problems. And many of them are just using the possibility to apply for asylum to get into the European Union as economic migrants. So that's one of the problems.
Let's not make it more complicated for the public which is watching us. Yes, he's making a point, and the point is that there are migrants and there are asylum seekers, and they must be told as different situations. That is true, but it is also true that those who have actually succeeded in getting asylum protection did have to make it here illegally, irregularly. Why? Not only irregularly, exposing themselves to human traffickers and massive exploitation and violation of the most basic human rights, because they were not given any other chance to make it here regularly, because there are no legal pathways. What is the bottom line? What is the background of it all? Lack of solidarity, lack of shared responsibility, and lack of compliance with international humanitarian law in the first place, but European law in the second place, because there is European legislation effective by now, which is being violated by an increasing number of member states, including Hungary, which is not taking a single asylum seeker, not paying any solidarity to the rest of the members who have vulnerable external borders, as is the case of Spain, Croatia, or Greece.
Well, I want to ask about action then. I mean, it has been suggested, for example, that funding could be withheld from member states that are not respecting rule of law within the European Union. What about the idea that funding could be withheld from European funding from states that are not complying with standards of fundamental rights in terms of migration? Is that something you would support? Is that something you think could go anywhere?
Principle.
Of course.
Of course, we have stated that
we
principle.
have to take into every country that is not complying with the collective decision must face the responsibilities of the denier. Why not?
I'm a lawyer, so I like to talk in legal terms, because everybody now here is mentioning law. They're using the law, unfortunately, sometimes just when it benefits their own arguments, but when it doesn't, then they just forget about it. So the thing is that we have the mechanisms for sanctioning of member states who are violating human rights. That's the Article 7. We have the procedure which is currently in place. So we cannot make up new procedures which are not legally grounded in the treaty. So we have to respect European law, as you mentioned.
But it's also true that this European Parliament has adopted its position in a number of resolutions. We have done it in Libe and in the plenary. And in our position, we have stated our case for a so-called rule of law framework, in which countries which are in flagrant violation of the fundamental rights, democracy, and rule of law principles, which are enshrined in Article 2 of the Treaty of the European Union, not only should be subject to the maximum hypothesis, which is Article 7, but also to limitation of their access to the budgeting, because they are not in compliance with rule of law.
And you think that that's something that would
rights.
make member states change their actions?
Yeah, sure.
But for this kind of action, there is no legal basis in the treaty, because the treaty does not provide legal grounds for this. I even wrote a paper about this. So if you want to do something like this, you would need to change the treaty, because the current legal provision on limiting of budgeting only applies to to some kind of violations of financial rules, etc. So not this kind of very broad definition and possibilities to sanction member states. This is mistaken by the legal service.
There is a so-called Asylum and Migration Fund, whose access can be denied on the grounds of not compliance with the rules of the game.
Well, currently there's also talk about, there's been for a long time, not just currently, for many years, talk about overhauling.
But that's very limited. That's a very limited provision for very limited funds, so not the overall European budget.
Well, just broadening it out then, as I was about to say, there's been talk for many years about overhauling what's known as the Dublin regulations, which deals with how asylum seekers are received into the EU and then how they're processed afterwards. Currently, there's this principle, which many countries say that they're against, principally Greece, Italy, saying that the asylum seeker is processed and dealt with by the member state where that person arrives. Now, there's been a lot of complaints this is unfair. Guy Verhofstadt, in the recent days, he's been saying that we need to overhaul Dublin regulations.
But of course.
But not just on this score. Could that also include this concept that you're talking about the withholding of funds?
Of course.
How far could it go, this overhaul?
No. There is a new asylum package which is in discussion, but there is an asylum package which is effective. It's to be renewed. And one of the component elements of the mandate of the new Commission, von der Leyen, is precisely to come up with a new asylum and migration pact. We're still waiting for it, but people should know that the European Parliament has adopted a whole updating asylum package which has been blocked by the Council. So it's not the responsibility of the European Parliament, it's the Council, which
the Council being the heads
the
of state
body
and
in which
government.
the governments meet.
And it's not only all about money. You know, when Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen comes in Greece and gives some money for the Greeks to take care of the refugees, I don't know. I mean, this is not only a question of money. Germany must stop thinking only about money. This is a value of the European Union, a high value. You know, a humanitarian law. The humanitarian law is above all the other existing laws.
Just one final question, in a word from each of you, because we have about 20 seconds left. Do you believe that this situation right now between the EU and Turkey, it is going to spark a change in migration laws here in Europe?
It's very hard to say. I think it's good that EU has shown a great deal of unity in responding to the blackmails of Erdogan. So I think this kind of common approach will also continue when discussing the rules as well.
There must be a change anyway, not only in European law, because we are awaiting a new asylum and migration pact, as I said, but also a political change which brings political will. These kind of issues could be dealt with in one day if there would only be political will.
If we want the European Union to exist, we have to change.
All right, thank you to all of my guests. Thanks very much for watching Talking Europe. I hope to see you in part 2 of the programme in just a few minutes' time.
Thank you.
Tomorrow is International Women's Day. But what about the day after that? Every day on France Media Monde's platforms, we feature women making the news with regular updates, interviews, reports and debates. World citizens, journalists, artists, researchers, writers and politicians expressing their views every day on our programmes, applying their expertise in every domain. Women are everywhere on our channels, in French and in the 19 other languages of the group. RFI, France 24 and Monte Carlo Dualia, the channels for people who are driving world events. March the 8th is International Women's Day. Let's make it every day, all over the world.